welcome. One of the things that we're going to do is pass between some groups. I've got a great team in here between account executives, account managers, the people you're used to working with more on a consistent basis, as well as the creative services team who's in here and very excited to kind of directly interact with you that isn't just specifically graphics, on a proof-by-proof basis. So they're getting to chat with you kind of in a different way. Good morning. So I'm going to get started here and just sort of guide us through the process. I'll be your moderator, but Aziz, John Couch, Melissa Minkler, they're going to be fairly active participants in the process and be able to communicate some things. Through most of the webinar session, your individual mics will be muted, but there is a chat space. So should you have comments and questions as we go, feel free to write them in there. We see them, we have them accessible. We'll do our best to answer those questions, but we do have a great Q&A section, I think, at the end, where our goal really is to kind of hear where you like certain things, where you have questions about how the system is advantageous, or whether we can answer better questions about it, and kind of see where we can improve a little bit in terms of how we work with you to some extent. But we're glad to have a good group of exceptional partners here on the phone to work with you guys. I'm really happy about it. So I'll take a quick moment and I'm going to pass this off now. We're gonna get started.
Thank you, Evan. Good morning, guys. I'm Aziz. Most of you guys know me. I manage the Creative Services Department. Before we dive into ProofHQ itself, we'd like to do a brief run-through of the AGS sign request and production process to give you a little insight as how we manage the workflow behind the scenes. Before the proofing process begins, there are many things which happen behind the scenes. The process begins when you submit your design request. The account managers take your info and generate a design work order. As you can see, Karen and Brenna. The Creative Services Department then reviews the work orders to confirm the info and all elements are correct. Then it gets assigned to a design team member. Our designers then start to design the process. They generate PDF proofs, which is then uploaded to ProofHQ for the review and approval process. Once you hit that green button, you're all done. A proof sheet is then generated and submitted to the production team. The team will then print and finish your signs, stage, and get it ready for shipping. The process is repeated for every single sign order. ProofHQ helps us generate a final checklist, which we compare to the original order. Using ProofHQ, as you can see, helps us to streamline our workflow and ensure that minimal mistakes are made. We understand that signage is very important to you and your show, and we want you to have a seamless AGS experience. Thank you. I'll now pass the mic over to Evan.
All right. Yeah, I think that when we implemented ProofHQ about 3 years ago, I know that for some it was a learning process. For some people, they had already been exposed to it. Other people were looking for a resource that allowed them to kind of organize and communicate more effectively on their proof side. And I think I recognize that as we develop and move further into it, that our goals really align with the distribution of the tool. And that's specifically because we really want to guarantee 72 hours in turnaround. You provide us a request, we really want to turn both the design request and the edits around in less than 3 days, so that regardless of whether AGS is producing one event or 100 events simultaneously, you won't know the difference. So the tool is really designed to help us control the flow of information, allow you to send feedback in a sense of real time, and for you to also be able to collaborate. The great thing is there are sharing features. It doesn't have to be just you, it can be a team. And not only is it just a team, it's also our creative services team watching things change and develop as you're looking and thinking about your graphic needs. So it keeps tracking of changes in one place. It allows us to lower errors and ensure that the corrections that we're making based on the needs that you have are really happening as fast as possible. That's really a key focus for us when it comes to using a tool like ProofHQ. So moving forward, I really appreciate you guys taking the time here this morning to work with us, and I think that we're very excited to kind of move forward in it. So what we're going to do is get into the kind of meat and potatoes of things and really kind of get to explain some of the great features of the system. So I'm going to pass this on to John Couch, one of our lead designers.
Morning, everybody. This is John. I'm going to step us through the process of what you see initially and how the first communication is sent out and what you'll see in your email. So this is really about managing the email notifications. So what you're seeing here is the first thing that you'll get when the design team uploads a proof to ProofHQ, generates this email alert. You'll see everyone on our team and everyone on your team that's involved in this particular review proof process. Underneath the small preview, that's the little preview of the actual first page of the proof that we're working on for that particular notification. You'll see everybody email accounts listed underneath, and you'll see some indicators of the review process status right there at that moment and what team members have done. The letters stand for S, that is just stands for sent, and you'll see that on everybody's status. The other letters, O, C, and D, stand for opened, so that'll show anyone that's actually opened that proof so far. The letter C stands for comments, anybody that's made any comments on that yet. And the letter D is for decisions. You'll only see that for the team members that are involved and have that status of making an approval. And usually what you'll see when that letter D is filled in, usually, hopefully, is approved. Or you could also see approved with changes. How to get to the review itself is this big blue button that says go to proof. And it's just that simple. When you click on it, it'll take you to the review page. You don't have to sign in or you don't need a password. It just takes you right to the page. It'll take you to ProofHQ, and this is the first thing you'll see. And this is the review page itself. All right. And once you're familiar with this, with most of the basic controls, you can click on Close Tour just to get right to the review. But it's good to do this. I do this every once in a while too, just to be reminded of what some of the controls do. So the first thing it shows is really the most obvious, the Add Comment button, the big orange button right at the top, and that's what you would click on to open the text box to add a comment. So that's where that's located. Then it will show you some of the navigation controls. Yeah, this would be the view comments and how to arrange your comments. There's a filter that lets you list the comments in different ways. It's not active right now. I will go through that later, and it can show things in order of time. You can filter out a particular person that made comments if you want to see just that. So you have that ability to make the filters. You can also narrow it down to just a particular one single comment. If you just want to read, like maybe somebody wrote a lot and you just want to look at that one comment, you can do that too. Okay, the next step in the tutorial will take you to, this is just page navigation. There's a way to click through the pages when you get a multi-page PDF. Sometimes it's just a few pages. It could be, I don't think it's limited actually. It can have as many pages in a particular proof if you have a lot of signs that are the same size, like 22 by 28s or whatever. There's a way to change that at the top, and I'll show that later too. There's a different way to click through the pages. The next, this is your pan and zoom controls. There's a lot you can do there. You can rotate the document around. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. The most important one, and the very first one I click on when I come to this page after I click Close Tutorial, is this little one-to-one icon at the bottom, and it shows these little arrows pointing outwards towards the edge of the box. That zooms the page in so that you can see the entire document all at once. And then only for those who have the ability to make decisions, that's the green button that Aziz was talking about earlier. That's the approval button. And there are different stages of approval that Melissa will go over with you as well to show different approval statuses. So that's pretty much basically what you see when you first sign on. And I'll go into some of the other controls later. Right now I'm going to hand it over back to Aziz that'll talk about how to add comments and what you actually do in the markup process.
Okay, thank you, John. This session is really important for you as a client and to us. When you use ProofHQ to make comments and markups, this helps us as a team to keep your signs organized and also keeps your edit requests and comments all in one place for the review team. This allows us to complete your edits faster, more efficiently, so we can get your proof back to you in an adequate time. This also helps when comparing multiple versions using the split function. John will touch on this later on. In addition, ProofHQ assists with the grouping of your sign requests. As most of you guys know, there are multiple signs, different size, there are structures that all get requested. We do our best to keep these separated and organized within ProofHQ. It keeps all the edits and comments in one place and allows us to build a proof sheet to reconcile your signage order before we ship. I'm going to run you through the comment functions, and I'll highlight some of the tools I highly recommend that you use. Today we have a tree sample PDF that we'll be working with. So let's make a comment. On the very top, you'll see this orange button. If you click on there, there are 8 tools. I'm going to discuss the top 3 tools that we use. All of them have the ability to do a markup and attach to a comment. But the 3 that we mainly use is the box tool, the line tool, and the highlight tool. So let's begin. This is the box tool. So right here, I'm going to make this logo a little bigger. So it attaches to a comment bubble to the right hand side. As you can see, once you hit save, the comment is attached to the right. And there's a little icon, well, a little notification here that tells you you have a comment. It also says number 2, and there's a number 2, so there's a second comment on this page.
Also, kind of to take a quick note too, and I don't necessarily know if everybody leverages this, and that kind of works well. I know when we deal with logos and things like that, if you want to click on your comment number 2, you can go back to it later. You can continue to comment in there if you make a change somewhere down the road, which is exceptional. One of the other things that you can do, I don't think most people notice this, is that little clip icon in the bottom left hand corner. When you click that, it'll allow you to attach something. So instead of sending back a logo that you would want to do normally through an email or something like that, unless you were bulking them all together, say you want to replace a single logo on an entranceway or on a 22 by 28, or maybe even a master logo that goes across a template file that you're trying to approve with your account executive, you are more than capable of actually selecting it and applying it here. Size within reason, but I think that the average logo files between 5 and 10 megs, even if it's in full high res. So it's kind of a really neat tool. I don't think most people tend to use it, but I also think it's a huge advantage, especially when you're dealing on the sponsorship side of things, which I think is a huge value, right, and value proposition for you guys when it comes to your graphics. So that's one of the kind of lesser known and lesser used tools that I think that if were exercised more, it would speed up the process of changing some of these signs out.
Thank you, Evan. The second one is the line tool, and the line tool is almost the same. You can underline a word, and it also pops up an add comment button. And the third, which is one that is used a lot, is the highlight tool. And you can also change it to any color that you like. Hot pink is probably the best color, so don't be afraid to use it. So that's pretty much it for the comments section. I'm going to pass this over now to John.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to show how we continue on with the proofing process and reply to comments, and how we here can compare versions, and you can do as well, just to make sure the changes were done. Okay, so when we do a change and upload it, normally there would be, or it's going to cancel out the comments because the comments are attached to that first version. But if you want to see the changes that were made, you can click on this little icon here that shows a split screen, and it's going to show a comparison between the previous version and the version that you're looking at now. I'm just going to click back on version 1 because I like those to appear on the left side. Okay, so you can see you have simultaneous control of both versions, so you can take a look at the change that was made. So you can see originally the logo was that size, and now the revised version shows the logo bigger. On the second page we made a change. You can see that there was a typo there, so that was changed. And then on the third sign, it showed originally that the time was 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., which would be an awful long session. So we changed that to 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So it just shows how you can compare the versions and go through the document one page at a time, just to see that the changes were made.
This can help substantially. I think sometimes what we find ourselves in is when we're into the 4th or 5th revision, because we're really trying to make some adjustments to, especially like when we come back to things like sponsorship boards and checking things like that out. I think that this is where it becomes a really powerful tool, because you're really trying to make sure. I know that sometimes it's checking our work, which obviously we certainly understand wanting to do that, and sometimes it's on your side wanting to know how the signs probably evolved, whether we've, whether sometimes you've added in all the sponsorships that you've probably sold for these particular things. So knowing that you have that tool at your disposal, I think is pretty advantageous.
Right, and then with the comments, of course we would respond and type back the changes were made, or if we have any questions, like how much bigger do you want the logo, or is there something else missing, or other changes that we need to do. So we can communicate back and forth, and the great thing I love about this program is that it does keep it all together in one place. I don't have to refer to a past email or ask someone else for some hard copy thing that I have to look at. It's all right there together, and everybody involved in the team can look at all the comments at the same time. All right, now I'm going to pass it to Melissa. She's going to talk a little bit about the approval statuses and just exactly how we comment back and forth.
Good morning. I'm Melissa. I'm going to go over how those comments get replied back. So under the second comment, you can see that I've made an additional comment that I agree with the changes, and it really just kind of starts a feed line, and all those comments will be linked together that are made on 2. So if you go to make a comment, they're all going to be housed under comment 2. And I think this speaks to what Evan was saying earlier, that we're looking to keep, if we can, all the comments in one area per edit versus kind of creating a third or a fourth comment instead of keeping it in the string. And I know John's going to go over in a little while how to filter out people's comments versus dates. But for right now, I'm going to discuss with you as well how to make your decision process. So we're going to review submitting your decision. When you've finished creating comments and markups, it is time to submit your decision. Please note, not every reviewer is an approver. Only people are assigned as decision makers in the program. I know we've commented on that, So right up here in the top right hand, if you're a decision maker, you're going to see the Finish and Review button. If you're only an approver, you're only going to see the Add Comment button at the top. So if you're that decision maker, you're going to go ahead and click on the green button, and it's going to bring up 4 different decision types. The first is Approved. So if you click on Approved, there are no changes. You're ready for that submitted version to be printed. If you click on Approved with Changes, you're ready for that to be changed, but once those changes are made, you're not requiring the graphics team to send you another proof. You're allowing them to print once they've internally made those changes. Now the third option is Changes Required. So if you're looking to get the latest proof so that you'll have a copy of it, you're going to want to click Changes Required. And what that does is it alerts the graphics team that they need to upload a new version, and at that point you still have to go back and make that decision of approval. Then the last is Not Relevant. This one hardly gets used, but if someone accidentally sends a proof that might not be relevant to you, and maybe it's a coworker's project and they weren't assigned, you can hit Not Relevant and put in a comment that please assign it to so-and-so, or if for some reason you got a different show's comment or proof uploaded, you can go ahead and make that mention there. So one of the things to touch on here as well is if you're going to want an email confirmation of your decision type to be sent to your email, you need to click Send Me an Email Confirmation in this decision before you hit Save. So once we hit Approved and we click it, we still have to hit the Save button. So just clicking on the proof won't automatically send you into printing. But one of the things that we do want to note as well is that once you approve your graphic or you approve with changes, that graphic is sent on to the print section of our graphics department. So once you've clicked either of those buttons, that graphic is basically in print. So if you have a logo that you're not sure of, or you know there might be a new sponsor coming on in the next day, we ask that you wait and either put comment with changes that you'd like to see or that there might be a change coming so that we kind of know about that anticipated turnaround, or just don't approve it yet and then take care of that once you have, because a lot of our prints do go right to print that same day once they've been approved.
The approval process to some extent is, as Melissa's described it, kind of final, especially when you put approve on something or approve with changes. So one of the things that we like to always comment on is that if you do find all of a sudden that you've approved something and something popped in the next 24 hours, please go back and directly contact your account executive or your account manager to kind of communicate with them, because we have an opportunity to work internally, especially when there are minor changes or things like that. Even though that's been sent to print, hopefully if the change isn't too major or it hasn't actually physically made it into the print queue yet, there is a chance that we can address that. So I know that sense of finality is a bit daunting sometimes, especially because there's so many graphics in front of you and making sure that you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, but we certainly want to be as flexible as possible without jeopardizing the entire project. So
I'm going to hand it back over to John, and he's going to review with you some of the additional functions that the program has.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Yeah. All right, this is John again. I'm going to show you some of maybe the lesser known icons along the side, some of the buttons you may have been afraid to click on, but it's just for organizational. Some of them show some of the new features of the program too, like being able to share the proof with anyone else in your office that wasn't originally included on the review team. Also, your email notification frequency. I know some folks don't like to see a lot of emails build up if it's not really relevant to them. Some folks like to get what they call a daily notification, which gives you all of the updates that were made for that day at the end of the day. So I'll show you how to do that too. So on the side, these icons here show the different ways that the proof is displayed. When you first come to the review page, the default is single page. And I have this weird habit, because I guess I work with other programs like Acrobat. When I scroll this page, I'm looking for like page 2 or 3, and it doesn't work that way unless you have the continuous icon clicked, which is what we have now. Usually when it comes in, you get the single page view, if you like to look at just one page. But I find this continuous page view, this is the third icon over, if there's a lot of documents, I can just use the mouse to scroll, and I can scroll through the documents. Now, I might not know what page I'm on if I get scrolling too fast, but it helps me get to the next page pretty quickly. On this side, you see these, this, I guess they call it a page thumbnail view. That sometimes is not on. If you need to turn it on or off, it's the very first icon. That will help you get to a page further down the document much faster. If you know you want to look at page 10, click on page 10. If you want to switch back to page 1, you don't have to scroll through the whole document. And this last icon is called Magazine View. It's really just for what they call facing pages layouts. It would mostly be for if we're laying out a book or something like that type of document. But what we deal with mostly is signs, so we don't have a facing pages type of document that you would use anyway. But if you like that view for whatever reason, it's there, it's available. You can do it if you like. I like to stick to the single page. Now, some of these other icons on the side that you probably don't click on, this shows the folder. This is how the proofs are organized. So there's a particular folder in the system just for you and your project, and it shows, this would be the name of the project, and then if we had more proofs, they would all be listed. So if you wanted to go from the 22 by 28 signs to an entry unit to meter boards, you could look for that and, you know, take a look at other proofs.
I think that's a huge thing, right? So that, you know, instead of feeling like you have to keep going back and finding that one particular email and clicking that one particular link, as long as you use one link in one email, anything that's been assigned to you to your particular email address is available inside that foldering. So that one listed set of signs happens to be one in this particular proof setup, but you'd have 5, 6, 10, 20, whatever the number of sets based on the areas or locations that you'd have, they would be available there, and you could switch back and forth between them. So you could spend some time on 3 or 4 sets today and then do another 5 tomorrow, and you don't have to worry about locating that email that we sent you 3 weeks ago or 2-3 hours ago.
Right, so it keeps all the projects within that particular show organized for you. You could, yeah, really use it to help you organize. The next icon is a workflow, and it just shows who's involved in the project and the things that they've done, if they've approved anything, if they've made comments, and it would show the list of people here. So that's just a workflow icon. The next is a proof detail. Yeah, it shows all the information on like when the document was first created. The way we do it, we upload it, we put in the name, the version number, so you can check that there as well. So that's just an info icon. The next, this is to share the proof with someone else. So if you wanted to share it with someone else in your office, you just need to know their email address, and let's go ahead and click on it and see what you get. You get this window, you type their email address in, you can type a little message to them, hey, take a look at this proof, click on send, and they will have the same status that you have. If you're not an approver, they're not going to be able to approve it. If you're a reviewer, they'll be able to look at it and make comments. There's also a status of read only. So if you're a read only status and you pass it on to someone else, they're only going to be allowed to read it. They're not going to be able to make comments or approve it or make any decisions.
So this is a big thing. I know that some people have groups and teams that they kind of work with when it comes to actually managing their proofs. The best thing you can do, I know sometimes there's a tendency to forward the email to another person in your team, but the best thing you could do is either inside the email, there's a link that says share this with somebody else, or you can use this function as well to share out with a team member. Best reason to actually use the share function is so that their comments can be isolated to their names. Because if you send your own particular email, that link links back to your name. And so if Kim puts in a comment and Kim sends that on to Barb and Barb makes a comment, it actually would look like Kim's making 2 different comments. So in this case, it kind of helps to do the sharing function so that we can sort through, and even you can sort through what's actually been changed or commented on.
So the next icon is your email notification. Here's where you get to change how often you get an email. Usually the default is all activity, so that means every single time any team member makes a comment, you're going to get a comment. So if you don't want to see all comments that are going back and forth between all the team members, you can choose to click on Daily Summary, and I know some folks that do that and like it. Just be aware that at 12 midnight, you're going to get a download of all the comments.
The good thing is in the Daily Summary, it actually groups everything together. So you may get 2 or 3 emails based on the number of sets of proofs you have up, but each email will include all the comments that were made for that day, or the changes or revisions or versions that have been posted up. So you'll get a single summary, which is exceptional in comparison to all activity. I think that the choice of activity often depends on how close you are to production, how close you need to keep an eye on things as things are kind of finalizing. But oftentimes it's probably good that daily summaries come in and they're easier to kind of manage, I think, in comparison to the hundreds of other emails you're already getting.
Right, so you get to decide if you're not really involved in the project, but you just want to see when it's been finalized for approval, or if you can filter it down to just decisions, whenever there's a decision made for changes, or if you just want to see when it's approved, you can get that email. The next icon, I kind of hesitate to share, but I know that people need to do this, is download the whole document. That's because we're really trying to get away from the hard copy proofing system of printing it out, making proof marks, but I know sometimes it's necessary, and I think that request has been heard and felt, so there it is. There's your icon to download the whole document. It's going to download the whole document, not just a single page. So if I would just caution this, if you're going to do that and download the document and make handwritten comments, don't forget to put comments in the comment section too, because if you're handwriting on a hard copy, we're not going to see it. We're not going to get it. So, maybe whoever you're sharing those hard copies with, go ahead and add them in as a team member, even if it's just to see the documents, if they're not going to make comments, if you want someone else's opinion on the proof. At least that keeps the whole team together, and we get better feedback that way. And the last icon looks like a print icon, and that it's a little misleading, because not only will it print the whole document, but it will print every comment and all of the details about the proof as well. This is helpful to me. I use it a lot. I print this out so that I can go through page by page what changes need to be made and who's requesting that and what time it was requested. I don't know if it would be helpful to you. It might be, but there it is. If you want to download that and print that out with all the comments, you can do that too.
I think this is a great thing for those who binder for all of their graphics and bring them with them to show site, to be able to print that out, because what it does is in many cases it'll print a page and it'll show each individual comment, and then it'll flag each individual comment on that sort of semi thumbnail of the graphic. So if you don't want to worry about having to log in to ProofHQ later on, finding an email or going in and looking at the sets of comments, you can print that document out for yourself, binder it, PDF it, throw it anywhere you particularly want. I think that's great for on-site proofing when you're like, hey guys, can we go through the signs? These are what I have on our final changes. Okay, this looks correct. This matches. Great, let's move on.
And to add on that, with Evan, we use that function when we sort your signs before we pack. So we make sure that we get the signs corrected.
Sometimes you want to share a document, but you don't want to have to sign into ProofHQ to do that. There is a way to do it from the email. If you open up your email and you just think to yourself, here's a proof that I want to share with somebody, but I don't want to have to sign into ProofHQ to do that. And that's why I missed showing it before. It's really small, but there it shows. But if you click on that, it's an actual link, and it'll bring you to that share page. And you can type in someone's email and go ahead and write a note. Hey, Tom, take a look at this. And does this look upside down or what? Anybody else want to make a comment?
I'm going to kind of bring it back a little bit here and bring everybody kind of out of mute, but I just sort of wanted to pull it back into a Q&A phase and sort of see if there's anything that we can highlight or better inform about based on this sort of overall goal. I think that we've covered 90% of the entire interface. I mean, there are probably some smaller, lesser known things that are in the system, but they're rarely used, and I think the reason that they're rarely used is that they're more for marketing style content management versus the wide format graphics we're generally producing. So I'd love to open up the floor. We've got account executives, account managers in here, creative team people in here. Everybody sort of that can answer a question for you is available. So would love to see if there's anything that you guys wanted to discuss. Silence.
This is Miller. I'm with SMFM. We're a new client, so we haven't used this yet. Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
We're looking forward to using it on our first show with you. And I just had a quick question. I'm very familiar with Acrobat and editing PDFs, and I didn't really get that much of a chance to look at the editing on this. But with this, can you actually edit the pages themselves, like find and like replace text or delete directly, or do you have to use the comments? Can you switch pages around, like if you're doing 3-meter panels, can you extract one, or would you have to write that as a comment type thing?
Right, so most of that's comment based, and I know that Acrobat's a fairly complex tool in terms of what it's capable of doing, mostly because it's document management, sort of 8.5 by 11 scale. There is a tool in here, instead of find and replace, that's not actually possible because we like to kind of manage the edits for you. Part of that's because the system doesn't actually have access to proper fonts and things like that, so it wouldn't be able to actually do the editing you'd want. So that sort of self-checkout concept's not really possible when it comes to editing. But there is inline editing of actual text in some cases where you can't edit it, but what you can do is highlight actual text and go in and make the comment that you want instead of just using a bulk highlighting or a box feature. And it'll actually pull the terms and words that you're highlighting into the comment first so that you can make an adjustment on them should you want to. The only caution that I make on this is that not all text is actually text. I know that sounds kind of funny, but because oftentimes you're sending in graphics, it appears that it's text, but in fact they're actually images. So you can use the inline highlight and replace function where you can go in and make an adjustment on something in here, and we can see that very clearly. But just keep an eye that sometimes you may not be able to highlight it in this particular manner. You may have to use a box or a highlight tool just because of the nature of the development of signs. So they're not quite live text.
Right. Well, so, yeah, some of ours are tend to be like lists. I mean, in long lists of, say, here are all of our exhibitors, hundreds of names on these large meter panels type things. And so in that sort of situation where you're switching big chunks around, would it be better then maybe to attach, like a new file of what you would want the changes to be, or
yeah, actually, if it's more than you can put in the comment box, I guess you could just attach another Word file. Normally, the changes we get are usually pretty small. It's like, a typo or, an AM to a PM, or sometimes we do get changes where a session name changes or the speaker cancels and we have to put in a new speaker or time. So if it's too much to add in the comment box, I would, go ahead and attach a Word document.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's just like, that you have so much that it looks, squished on one panel, so you decide you have to add like another panel or sign or something to open it up. So
Yeah, and we're really, really good at looking at every individual comment and making sure that if there are questions, we don't hesitate to reach back. So if something looks like you need an additional sign or it's going to fall over the particular sign, even with the adjustments, we're certainly going to note that, and that'll go back to you directly. And it won't not every comment's going to probably return back through the system, meaning you won't have to answer every question. Sometimes we are going to physically reach out to you over phone or over an email and say, look, we've got your comments back. We certainly want to better understand what your goal is for this particular sign.
And I know, Julie, it's structure items that I think, like your donor wall and your list where it's going to be possibly 2,000 names. And with those, we can work very closely with you, especially if you need to like find and replace a name or anything like that. It doesn't necessarily have to happen through HQ Proof. We can make that comment and our team can do that find and replace too within the InDesign document. So if it comes up to be something where we name somebody in the wrong name and we have to do a search, we're capable of doing that on our side. You would just put a comment or give myself or the account manager a call and we can take care of that.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we look at this stuff, you know, like, or of course we try before we even give it to you, but you never know. I mean, things happen.
Oh, we understand. We do quite a few walls.
We've seen billions of names.
Yeah, me too.
Right, so that opens up some choices to have the comments either ascending or descending by time or by page number. There you can pick the people on the team. That's kind of weird the way it has all the names checked. I've found when you check on the name or click on a name, it actually takes that person out. So sometimes you have to unclick everybody and then click on the one you actually want to see. And those are just actions. That's just shows, you know, comments as far as approvals and decisions. So yeah, that's the filtering tool.
Yeah, it can be helpful, especially after you're 20 or 30 comments deep, and if you're working with teams, kind of going back and forth on something quite substantial like an entranceway or registration area.
I might have missed when you did this, but it's a feature that I use a lot at the very bottom to change the size of the view. Right now you've got it 32%.
Right.
So when I'm looking at an entrance unit or something, and I'm looking at it across the board, but I want to see closer on some specific wording. I use that a lot in terms of also highlighting and having it zoom into that. So I don't know. I might have missed it. Maybe you did show that, but I didn't think I heard you.
Yeah, touch on it briefly.
Yeah, we touched on it. Especially when you have 76 directionals to proof, huh, Debbie?
Yeah. I get him too quick.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of options here at the bottom right-hand corner. Obviously, the zoom in and zoom out, and the actual manual zoom mode, so you can actually just click at something and slowly continue to zoom in.
And then you can use the hand to pan through.
And then you can continue to use the hand to move things around. I think the great features that you come down to is the fit page function. So assuming that you're dealing with something that can sit there, obviously meter boards are tougher, right? You'll want to zoom in and zoom out on a meter board because they are so tall. And then there's obviously the fit to width, which is actually probably the simplest way of looking at a meter board, because at least you can then scroll vertically on the page and continue to look at the content as you go. And then of course there's a 1-for-1, which even though we post everything at about 25 to 50% would be quite daunting, especially on some of the larger structures, so you'd end up seeing the absolute detail. Now 1-for-1's awesome, especially if you're trying to proof logos. So even though we don't post the highest resolution file on ProofHQ, it's high enough that you can tell whether or not a logo, for example, is of low resolution. So you'll kind of understand that. And I know that it's tough sometimes to get sponsors to send in high resolution logos, and we work really hard to go through those files to make sure that they're as clean as possible, because the printer really can pick up on a lot of detail if it's available to it, but it can also print a lot of marring if in fact there isn't a lot of detail. So
right. Using that tool, I would also caution that if you have a question about quality, I don't know if this is the greatest program to be checking quality. Sometimes, because it could be a multi-page document, it could be a very large document. For me to get it, or anyone in the design team to upload it to ProofHQ, if we're doing a display structure and it's at only, maybe we've designed it at 50%, and you want to see the quality of a photo and you zoom in on it, we might have reduced it down to the smallest size PDF. So what you're looking at is really not what's going to print. So if you have a question about that, I would just throw that in the comments. Is this really what the photo is going to look like? And then we can check the high-res document and make sure it's a good file.
Yeah. Or even send you a PDF version of those logos in the high res so that you can take a look at them on your own.
Yeah, the last two tools on the bottom right really rarely will apply. I mean, rotating clockwise, I doubt you're going to find yourself in a scenario where we haven't already oriented the graphic appropriately. And the measurement tool, again, I wouldn't use the measurement tool because we generally load things in 25 and 50% of actual size. So if you try to measure something and wonder why it's not actually 22 inches by 28 inches, you'll find that it's because it's just scaled. So.
And I know that John touched on the fit to page button as being one of the first things you're going to want to hit on. This is really true when you open up an entrance unit or you open up a structure that we're having to input it and it's already larger than the space. You could do the one-to-one, but that fit to page is going to bring that all down into one page. Sometimes we've had it too where you might upload something and there might be a lot of black space on that graphic and that might be all you're seeing. So it looks like there isn't a proof, but if you just go down and kind of make it maybe your first button that you hit when you come in after cancel tutorial and you go in and you hit that fit to page, it's going to allow you to see that whole entrance unit, or it's going to allow you to see all of that image. So you'll be able to see it even if you're only kind of looking at a white space at that point.
Great point, Debbie. Thank you. Well, we're sort of closing in on the end. I guess if anybody has any last thoughts or questions, feel free. But again, our goal really is we're going to kind of wrap this all up together and send you an email, and you can access this at any particular time. But I really like John's point, and I want to stress that too. Your account managers, your account executives, your creative services team, everybody has a lot of time in the tank when it comes to ProofHQ. So they understand it kind of backwards and forwards. If you find yourself in a situation where you're like, I know this system's going to be able to make this easier for me, I just can't remember that particular need or that node or that button or that function, reach out. We're here all the time to help you with production needs, but that goes down to the last nth degree in terms of graphics proofing and everything in between. So we are here for you. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Eddie. This is great.
We appreciate all your time this morning.